Good evening. This is Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm Joe.
And we are very happy to have everyone with us tonight. We have a very interesting guest tonight, Dale Kaczmarek from Chicago. Dale, how are you doing?
Fine. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're doing pretty good. It's our pleasure, and I think we're going to have some interesting things to talk about. And I want to introduce Dale. Basically, that he's done all kinds of things in the field. Been doing this a very long time. Everything from investigating to writing books to conducting ghost tours in Chicago. Dale, what is on your menu these days?
Well, basically, we're very, very busy this time of the year. Spring and summer and early fall is our when we do most of our investigating. We just got back from investigation last night in Alden High School up near the Wisconsin border. Most of our Saturdays throughout the summer are pretty much taken up for investigations. Next weekend, we're going out to Allegan, Michigan, to a haunted bed and breakfast we're going to be staying at. We're also going to investigate a sheriff's residence and jail out there and an Allegan lodge, which used to be an old tuberculosis and asylum at one time. And we got some incredible EVPs and disembodied voices last time we were there. So we do keep ourselves pretty busy during the spring and summer months doing investigations. Keeps us really hopping almost every weekend.
Well, I understand we're kind of the same way. Just about every weekend. In fact, John's been complaining that there's nothing scheduled for next week. Time off's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do with myself when we got time off.
We get so many investigations and we get so backed up with evidence we have to review that sometimes we have to take a week off just to catch up on our EVPs and reviewing our video and our EVP evidence just to catch up and everything and writing up reports and getting back to the clients with what we picked up and so forth.
That's how we get too, and then the animals get restless, mainly him. So, what are your favorite places to investigate?
Oh, by far, my favorite locations are jails and prisons, insane asylums, and old hospitals. Those seem to be the locations that we get the most evidence from. In fact, we do have on tap later in the summer. We're going to be going to Crown Point Jail in Indiana, where John Dillinger escaped using his toy gun. That's been a very very active location. They've actually heard his harmonica playing in his prison cell. They say if you bring tobacco and whiskey to a cell that you do get lots of responses. We're also going to be going to another hospital in Gary, Indiana, in the end of June, June 28th. It's the actual hospital where Michael Jackson was actually born, called Mercy Hospital. And it's an abandoned 5-story hospital. And the last time we were there, we just got incredible EVPs. In fact, we actually sent one of them to you that I hope we'll have a chance to play a little bit later, that we actually got on Ovilus in phonetic mode. So we're actually going to hope to do a kind of a role-playing event there in one of the operating rooms. And every time we do any type of role-playing in hospitals, we just came back from Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. We got some incredible evidence when doing a role-playing event in an OR. We actually, just to give you an example, we were doing trying to put somebody under an anesthesia and told him to count down from 10 and to stop at 6 if he was going to be completely out at number 6. And something kept on counting down from 5 to 3. It was none of us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we find that too. I mean, and I know a big topic in the field right now, has been for a few years, is the role of provoking versus more encouraging or just more trigger work. And we shy away from provoking, but we find that role playing and period clothing, everything are much more effective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we don't do any provoking at all. I mean, we use a lot of trigger objects. We use trigger music sometimes. We'll do role playing. We'll try to elicit a response by using period objects that we bring along. And sometimes playing music. Sometimes we just came back from a riverboat investigation a few weeks back, and they say if you play ragtime music down there, that you often get responses. So, anything to set the mood and to remind the ghost of, the time frame that they were in sometimes is enough to get a response from spirits that may be lingering.
I agree. We've had a lot of luck with those techniques too, or playing, setting up a poker game in an area where there was gambling or gangster activity, things like that. And I find those tend to be the most fun investigations with the best results. Now, I also want to familiarize people, some reviewers, with some of your written work. You are a published author, and tell us about your books.
Well, I've written actually several books on the subject. I have written 2 on Chicago ghosts called Windy City Ghosts 1 and 2, which are basically a collection of stories of Chicago ghost stories. Now, what really got me involved was just the amount of ghost stories in the Chicagoland area. Chicago was just a hotbed of activity. And then I began to write other books in things that I had done outside of the Chicagoland area. I wrote a book on spook lights called Illuminating the Darkness, the Mystery of Spook Lights, which were ghost lights that I had investigated all around the country, like the famous Brown Mountain lights, the lights in Rensselaer, Indiana, the Watersmeet Ghost Light, the one in Joplin, Missouri. A lot of these I've actually saw with my naked eye. Some I was able to videotape. Some I was able to debunk, and some I wasn't able to explain away. And then got a little more technical. Got to write a couple of books on the aspect of ghost hunting. So I wrote one on Field Guide to Spirit Photography and a Field Guide to Ghost Hunting Techniques, which was kind of my way of showing people how to better their chances to capture things on video or on different types of cameras, and ways to enhance that rather than just taking random shots. And then also the ghost hunting techniques was showing the ways that we go about doing investigations, and how our investigative techniques actually work well for us in capturing evidence. And then my latest book was on a field guide to haunted highways and bridges. And I always thought that our haunted infrastructure, all the people that die in highways, accidents throughout the years, these roads and highways, country roads, bridges, and so forth, there's got to be some lingering spirits around here. And I was able to interview quite a number of people, other investigative teams, and they had investigated some of these sites and came across some lots of interesting first-hand accounts. And there was some folklore mixed in, with some of the stories. Sometimes it was difficult to tell which was folklore, which is real. But very interesting stories all around the country. A lot of crybaby bridges, unfortunately, which not always necessarily true. But I put them in there just to show, how they sometimes differ from reality.
Oh, I agree with you. Now, let's take up just a minute and talk about your book on spook lights, because, and you mentioned that you covered the Joplin spook light, which is our back door, basically, because we're based in the Joplin area. Well, what were your findings about the Joplin spook light?
Well, we could never ascertain that there was a natural reason for the light. I mean, I had been out there at least 8 different times throughout the years. My first time I was out there was Labor Day weekend of 1982. And we were out there back during the 1980s. And you got to remember the time set back there. In the early 1980s, we didn't have the type of equipment that we do have today. I mean, I was limited basically to very ancient equipment like basically cassette tape recorders. I mean, it was a camcorder. It was a very early camcorder. It wasn't like a Sony Night Shot. We had binoculars and things of that nature, and compasses and so forth. I don't even think gauze meters were out in the early 1980s. If they were very expensive. So we just kind of used the equipment at hand, and we were out there just making observations of the light. And the light was basically at that time seen almost from dusk until dawn. You know, for very, very long intervals sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we were taking pictures. We actually got a chance to capture it on videotape, which we actually posted up on our website. You can actually see, you know, some video of that spook light from 1982 up on our website. And back at that time period, if you remember, they used to have that spook light museum down there.
Oh yeah,
they had old Spooky Garland Middleton, who was the caretaker of that museum. I had a chance to meet him down there in 1982. He was a card. He was a real character, but he was a really nice guy. He had a lot of stories to tell about the spook light. And well, we saw it several times throughout the evening, throughout that Labor Day weekend. I wasn't able to explain it. I mean, it wasn't car headlights. You know, the topography of the area does not allow you to see headlights in the distance because of the trees and the way the rolling hills are. It wasn't will-o'-the-wisp. It wasn't swamp gas. It wasn't ball lightning. It wasn't subterranean gas coming from mines. You know, we literally chased this light all down these hills all night. Mm-hmm. You could never get close to this light. We did have one interesting encounter, which I posted on my website, which I cannot explain. We had several people see the same exact thing through high-powered binoculars. When we saw this light, it wasn't even on the road that evening. It seemed to be off the road, slightly off the road near a barn. In fact, it was so bright, we thought the barn was on fire. That's how bright this light was. When we looked at the light, it didn't even appear to be a ball of light. What it appeared to be was a diamond-shaped object with a hollow center that you could actually see through. You could see trees and bushes through the hollow center of this anomaly, whatever it was. When it went down behind the hill, it left behind twinkles, and the best way I can describe it was an essence of phosphorescence twinkling behind of whatever essence it left behind. It kind of twinkled in the area for several seconds. Now, I've never seen that. In all my time doing investigative work throughout, you know, the United States, I have never seen anything quite like that. And when I asked the other people what they saw, I didn't say, I had just seen this. I said, what did you just see? And they told me exactly what they just saw before I even told them what I saw. So they saw the same thing. And as we crept up the top of the hill, it came up over the hill about at a distance of about 75 feet. It went down behind the hill, again, leaving behind this little twinkling of phosphorescence. We got to the top of the hill maybe about 30 seconds later. When we hit the top of the hill, it was about a mile down the road. So it had gotten from where we were to a mile away in about 30 seconds. And then just disappeared.
Go ahead.
So what this thing is, I don't know. I mean, in the strictest sense of the term, it's a ghost light. It's an anomaly. Mm-hmm. It's just something supernatural that I can't come up with an explanation. Now, normally the telltale explanations that people try to explain these ghost lights or spook lights are there with car headlight reflections or tail lights, like in the case of the Watersmeet ghost light, which I was able to debunk that light. But in this case, you can tell when there's a car coming on the road. You can hear the gravel crunching. You can actually, diffuse the two headlights of a car headlight through binoculars very easily. And this was one simple ball of light that people were seeing down the road.
Well, and I can tell you from our own experiences with the spook light. In fact, our team, Paranormal Science Lab, our cover photo on Facebook is a picture of Spook Light Road in the light, which I took myself. But is that it definitely is not headlights. In fact, the earliest accounts of the spook light are from the 1830s on the Trail of Tears. So definitely not headlights for that. But I'm fascinated with your experience with the diamond shape in the hollow center, because one experience I've had was being down there with a team, and we separated into two groups about, not quite a quarter mile apart, facing each other, and it appeared between us. And the group that I was in, facing west, could see the spook light between the two groups. The other group could not see it, and started walking back, and as they approached it, it disappeared, and they never did see it. It was almost as if it was a one-directional phenomenon.
Well, I've heard that before, where at different angles you can't see it, and you have to like step over to be able to. Well, the time I saw it was actually in the pasture. I used to live just about half a mile off there, and I was going up fishing one morning, and it was bouncing across our pasture. It was funny though, because at the time there was a coyote that was about, I don't know, half a foot from my leg. Didn't know I was there. I turned around and said boom, butt through his face, and then took off. But so it was kind of funny. I don't know if there was any effect there as far as he was concerned, but it just seemed odd that he was that close to me and didn't notice me. Especially being a coyote. I mean, they're pretty spooky, isn't it?
Yeah, that he didn't know that you had approached.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know, it seems to almost have a space-time component to it, the way it acts.
That's the same experience we had several times that we were down the road. We actually had outposts set up all up and down the road, and we had them. We had walkie-talkies and CB radios in each car, and several people from the observation point, which is near the. If you remember, actually, the light is actually seen in Oklahoma, because the Spook Light Road, the intersection of Spook Light Road and that road is actually the Oklahoma Missouri border. So it's actually seen more towards Quapaw, Oklahoma. So you're actually looking into Oklahoma when you're looking towards the light. But the people at the observation point could see the light, and people further down the road could not see the light. And we were constantly saying, calling down to our outposts, why can't you see the light? You're right on top of it. We can see your car headlights. I mean, your tail lights on, keeping the running lights on so they weren't going to get sideswiped. And you could see the light almost on top of their car, but yet they couldn't see it, and we could see them back. We could see the light back at the observation point.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very typical of an experience for locals. And how does that compare to other ghost lights that you've investigated?
Is it very similar? That seems to be a criteria for ghost lights, is that you have to maintain a proper viewing distance for the spook light. We have a spook light here, not too far away, that unfortunately does not show up with any type of regularity. It's called the Maple Lake Ghost Light, and you see it from what's called the Maple Lake Overlook. And so you're looking across a body of water. See, there seems to be like 4 criteria for spook lights. They're seen near long stretches of narrow road, bodies of water, cemeteries, or railroad tracks. They seem to be around those 4 locations more often than anything else. Here, if you look across this about 3/4 of a mile of the lake, you'll see this red, brilliant laser beam light on the far shore of the lake. But people that have gotten on the other side of the lake in an attempt to, corner or chase down this light, even though people on the other shore are still seeing the light, people on the shore where the light is actually being seen, and they're right on top of it, they cannot see the light. And that's, to me, it's an impossibility unless you just go by the idea that you got to maintain a proper viewing distance for these lights. Now, I don't understand it, but that just seems to be the case, and I've investigated so many of these spook lights. Even the Marfa lights are the same way down in west Texas. The ones in Chapel Hill, North Carolina is similar. I said the Brown Mountain lights, I believe. Even the Mako light down in that used to up here in Maple, North Carolina, which is not seen anymore. You used to see a swinging lantern light from a distance down the tracks, and if you started to walk toward it, it suddenly would not be there anymore.
Well, and I know the super here, there isn't a body of water within several miles at all.
The closest would be Spring River, and I can't think of any train tracks. But there is a cemetery right there at Spring River, where they used to call Devil's Promenade. There's an old Indian cemetery right there.
Well, and that's what I was wondering, if there's a correlation with these sites and Native American sacred sites, because Devil's Promenade was a ceremonial site, right. And the Indians actually say that the light is related to the ceremonial site.
It very well may be, but it's several miles away. It's probably about 5 miles.
Yeah.
So.
Does there seem to be a correlation with Native American lore with other lights too?
Oh, absolutely. You got to remember that the entire United States is basically Native American Indian land. This is where the Native American Indians are the true Americans, and they actually have their roots here. Everybody else, the English, the French, the Germans, the Spanish. I mean, they all came from the other, across the big pond, across the Atlantic Ocean or whatever. And they have their roots elsewhere. So basically, anywhere here in the United States is basically Native American Indian land. So you're going to have that Indian lore connection somewhere in these spook lights. So regardless where you're at, there's going to be an Indian connection.
Well, I agree. I was just wondering if the other sites had ceremonial sites connected with them too. I was just curious if that seemed to be a pattern.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the case of many of these, for instance, the Marfa lights, they were seen on the Southwest, and they thought initially some of the earliest sightings of the Marfa lights date back to 1883, long before again automobiles, and they thought that they were first. Some of the cattle ranchers and cowboys thought they were Indian. Campfires out there in the distance. Of course, they weren't because they were moving. So they thought there was an Indian connection with that. They were on sacred Indian sites too, down in around Marfa and the town of Alpine, which are from what I understand, very sacred areas. Now Joplin, I'm not sure if it's really a sacred site, but there is a Quapaw Indian reservation not too far.
There's several tribes around there.
Yeah,
the Wyandots, Senecas, Quapaws. Of course, then you got the Ottawas, the Cherokees, Osage. There's all kinds of tribes around there, really.
Yeah. I venture to say, if you dug deep enough into any of these reports of spook lights, you would find an Indian connection in the vast majority of them.
Well, I think that's a real interesting point to be made, that there does seem to be a correlation and that it's very long-standing. It's not something that's technologically based, that they've been seen for hundreds of years.
You want to try to get those clips in there?
Yeah, let's see if we can cue up one of the audio clips. The first one that is queued up. I don't know whether, Dale, you want me to announce it or do you want me to play it first?
Well, maybe I can introduce it real quickly. Can you tell me what the name of it is?
No, you have to be psychic. No, it's Help Me.
Don't fish my dog.
It's called what?
Help Me.
Help Me.
Oh, okay, Help Me. That was one that we were in the Theater Guild in Webster Grove, Missouri. It's a theater, and we had actually set up. This is the very first time we had set up a Van de Graaff generator, which actually generates a huge electric static field, and we were using that. You might hear a lot of background noise from that, and we were just asking an EVP just questions, and you're going to hear a raspy voice. A female raspy voice several times say, "Help me." It's very raspy that comes through.
Okay, are we ready to play?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we need to do that.
Okay, let's go ahead and we'll play it now.
We have a couple devices out here also that can hear your voice. You want to talk to us? That was you. Can you do that again to the light for me? We have a couple devices out here also that can hear your voice. You want to talk to us? That was you. Can you do that again to the light for me?
Dale, what was your conclusions as to the source of that EVP?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your question.
What did you guys conclude was the source of that EVP? Who was asking for help?
We don't know, but there had been a report of a woman that had died in the theater. That is one of the most often things that come through in Avila sessions is the word help or help me. And this, sometimes it comes through the ghost box, it sometimes comes through the Avilas. This was just an EVP of a raspy voice that was apparently amplified, by using the Van de Graaff generator, rather than using an EM pump or something, which we actually had. This actually produces a very big field of static electricity that we hope that the spirits were able to harness for manifestations. And it worked apparently the very first time we used it.
Oh, wow. And have you continued to use it, or?
I'm sorry?
Have you continued to use it?
Oh, yes. We do use it. The only thing about that, we have to be very careful when you use that because it produces a big static field. If you got a computer nearby, it'll wipe your computer completely clean. It'll wipe your hard drive. So you really can't use it where there's electronics or anything like that, or in a theater like that, or in an abandoned building, it's fine. But when you go to a private home, you got to be very careful with that because it does generate such a big field.
What precautions do you use for your audio recorders?
We use an Olympus DM 420, and which is one of the clearest ones that I've found so far. As far as the clarity, I know you can get some of those Zooms that may be better, but for the price differential between getting a Zoom and getting an Olympus, several of my team actually use the Olympus, and it's some of the clearest sound recordings that I've ever heard.
Okay, I
actually looked at those. I wondered if they were any good. They look like a well-made device, but I hadn't heard of them.
And again, I have all the different equipment that we use basically on my website under a page called GRS Equipment, so people can go directly to the website and they can scroll through there, and there's pictures on there and places where you can actually, websites you can actually get that equipment from.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, the little Olympuses, they're under $100, if I remember right, or right around there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, mine, I paid a little bit more for mine because I actually went through a catalog. I actually got a little ripped off, so you can actually get it for less than $100. I think I paid $169 for mine, but but you can actually get it for less than $100. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I mean, and I admit I did use Olympus and Zooms both over the years, both with very good luck. Let's see. The next clip that we're going to queue up is the one that is medical care. Can you, let's set that one up.
Okay, the medical care one is actually, we were in Waverly Hills Sanitarium, and I'm sure everyone knows what Waverly Hills used to be. It was an old tuberculosis sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And we were using a mini box, not a ghost box, a true mini box. We were there with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, which is part of our group, and we hadn't even asked the question. We had just turned the box on. We were getting ready for an EVP session, and you'll hear a very clear voice that comes through and says, needs medical care.
Okay. I think we're going to play that now.
Communicate.
Medical care.
Communicate.
Medical care.
Communicate.
Medical care.
Communicate.
Wow, that was clear. It sounds like we need medical care.
Yeah. And just from where we're at, considering we're in a tuberculosis hospital, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, having that come through as a random radio signal, I don't buy it. And it's coming through, you're scanning very, very quickly, random channels. It's coming through with the same voice. So again, it's got to be something speaking through the white noise rather than a random signal coming through a radio signal.
Well, yeah, that's what it sounds like. If you don't mind my asking, I've investigated it Waverly Hills. What part of the building were you in when you caught that?
I'm sorry?
What part of the building were you in when you caught that?
Oh, we were down, if I remember correctly, I believe we were on the 4th floor.
Okay. If I remember right, that's mainly patient rooms, isn't it, on that floor?
Yes, it is. Uh-huh.
Okay. And so basically there wasn't anything running other than the white noise then?
No.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
That's a good EVP. The next one that's going to be queued up is therapy.
Okay, this is the same location, Waverly Hills, and again, you're going to hear a voice that says, needs therapy. It's the same voice that came through before that says, need medical care.
Okay, we're going to queue it up.
Right in the center. I love it.
New therapies.
Right in the center. I love it.
New therapies.
Right in the center. I love it.
New therapies.
Was that the almost like a young girl's voice, female voice? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, I believe it's the same male voice that said needs medical care that says needs therapy. So,
okay. Okay.
So I believe it's the same. We were communicating with the same ghost. It was during the very same EVP session, the very same place, same 4th floor. We hadn't even moved yet. It was just a few minutes later. We got the reply, need therapy. So he not only needs medical care, but he needs therapy.
That's amazing. Those are some of the best EVPs I've heard come out of Waverly Hills, to be perfectly honest. I'm pretty impressed with that. The next one that's queued up, I'm really interested in, because I'm just fascinated with the place anyway, but it's titled Lymph Fire.
Okay, this was at the Lemp Mansion. We had done an investigation there. Now, we had not even started our EVP session. We were just unpacking our equipment. We had another group there that was videotaping us and so forth, and they were just videotaping us unpacking our equipment. There was nothing on in the background. There was no TVs, no radios. In the background, you're going to hear noises of unpacking our equipment. But in the background, you're going to hear either a high-pitched male voice or a female voice, and it's screaming in the background, "Help me! I'm on fire! I'm on fire!"
Okay, we're going to cue that up.
Question. should be a question.
Yeah, that definitely is a desperate voice. Is there a history of fire at the mansion?
Not that I'm aware of. If you're familiar with the history of the Lemps, all of them committed suicide by shooting themselves in the head with pistols. I don't know of anything of any fire, anybody being consumed by flames. So that's really kind of a mystery of why that would come through.
I guess the only thing I can think of that would be, I know there's tunnels under the mansion.
Exactly.
Whether it's something connected to something that happened in the tunnels. But
we were never given access to the tunnel, so I mean, that could have been something with maybe the stills down there, or when they were storing stuff, or maybe there was a brewery fire or something. But nothing were we able to really put two and two together to explain this. So it's just kind of a mystery where this came through.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a desperate voice. It's very interesting. The next clip that we have queued up was the most surprising to me in its clarity, and definitely a really good Class A, and it's titled Magic.
Okay. Yeah, this one was taken at the Lincoln Theater in Decatur, Illinois. Now, the Lincoln Theater, among other people, it did have Harry Houdini there at one time. And there was actually on stage a trapdoor which was cut out of the floor that Harry Houdini used to fall through to make himself disappear. It was actually an illusion. He didn't actually disappear, obviously. So we were actually doing an EVP session directly below the trapdoor one year. And we asked the question, one of our EVPers asked the question, what are you going to perform for us? And you're going to hear a Class A EVP come through and say, magic. And the way he says it is very, very unique. The way he enunciates it, it says, magic.
Okay, I think we're going to cue that up now.
Who knows us here with us? To protect us? What are you going to perform tonight? Magic. What are you getting ready for? Who knows us here with us? To protect us? What are you going to perform tonight? Magic. What are you getting ready for? Who knows us here with us? To protect us? What are you going to perform tonight? Magic. What are you getting ready for?
Wow, I mean, that's an amazing clip.
And obviously it wasn't something that somebody heard, like a disembodied voice, because you can see they went and they asked another question immediately. So if it was something that somebody heard or somebody said that, they would have tagged it as an extraneous sound or a noise or something. But the very next question was asked right after that, so obviously nobody heard that at the time. So that came through as simply an EVP.
Well, I'd be really interested about the voice, because it was a very distinctive voice.
Yes, it was.
I was interested. I was wondering if maybe Houdini was not like that or something. I was curious.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if Harry Houdini's voice sounded like that.
Yeah, I wish there was a way we could somehow, match that sound with some of Harry Houdini's voices. I guess we could possibly do that if we had the right equipment and we were able to get some of his sound bites to see if it actually matched the inflections and the stress and so forth in his voice. There are ways of doing that to do voice matches. It would be interesting if it came back as his actual voice.
Yeah, I think if you came back with a voice match on that, that would be just stellar. I mean, obviously it was a unique accent, not someone that is living in modern Illinois, probably. What's your favorite evidence that you've ever caught?
What is my favorite what?
Evidence that you've ever caught.
Oh, would be, I don't know. I caught some amazing stuff here. I really can't say for sure. I mean, I caught some full-bodied apparitions actually on videotape. I've actually caught moving shadow figures on videotape. Video obviously is so much better than audio, in my opinion. I mean, I love EVPs. You know, don't get me wrong. EVPs are probably easier to come by than video. But when you actually see something, pictures are great. But when you see motion pictures, and that's really, you know, the holy grail, when you can actually see something moving. And we've actually captured moving shadow figures and actual moving full-bodied apparitions that look as solid as you and I. And they're listed on our website. Those are some of the stuff that we've actually captured. We set up, you know, full spectrum cameras. We set up, you know, infrared cameras. We have spectra cams. We use different thermal cams that actually pick up and register heat anomalies as well. And we're looking into various other different types of camera devices. But we do have a lot of equipment right now that augments our EVP sessions, you know, like the Ovilus, the Ghost Box. You know, we use Echo Boxes, which is a phone application that's been useful. And of course, you know, other things, you know, like you know, real-time EVP devices and so forth too.
What are your thoughts on? Do you have better luck with one kind of photography or videography versus others?
Didn't quite catch the beginning of that. I'm sorry.
Do you seem to have better luck with a certain kind of photography versus others?
Well, again, video is probably not as easy to capture, you know, obviously, because you really got to be facing just the proper location. I mean, where audio, I mean, you can be in a room and the ghost can be anywhere around, and you're going to pick up the audio, because we actually have what's called 360 microphones that will actually pick up in a complete circle 360 degrees around. So you don't have to necessarily point your microphone or condenser microphone towards the direction where you think the ghost is. You can put this what's called a 360 microphone in the center of the room, and it'll pick up noise from the entire room in a circle. Where the flip side of that, if you're shooting video, you're only taking in a small section of the room. So if you're not pointing it at the right section of the room, the ghost might be behind you, and you might miss that. So obviously, it's much harder to capture stuff on video or pictures unless you have multiple cameras set up, which we often do. But sometimes even with that, we don't catch a lot of video. We always seem to catch more audio than video.
And I agree with you there. I was kind of wondering, do you seem to have better luck with a certain kind of illuminator, say IR versus UV versus, you know, a complete full spectrum, etc.?
Well, we actually have a high definition full spectrum camera, which actually shoots in 1080p, which is not, you don't get that kind of gray, green kind of fuzzy look like you do with some, you know, IR cameras. It's a full high definition 1080p, which is really good, and we've actually picked up a lot of stuff with that full spectrum camera. We have a Spectra cam too that you can actually place in a room, and if there's any motion at all or anything changes, it'll actually put a box around the motion. It'll actually track motion in a room.
Oh, wow.
So when you go back and review something, you don't have to sit back and necessarily watch a screen forever and ever. If something moves, or if there's a change even in the light of the room, light, shadows, darkness, it'll box the area and follow that area through the room. So video review is so much easier using the Spectra cam.
That's interesting. I haven't played with that one yet. We have another clip that we want to queue up. It's the one that's titled "Not Scared of You." You want to set that one up?
Sure. We were over at the we were at the a home down in Mount Carrollton. I can't think of the name of the house right now. But we were doing this is with the Ovilus. For those that aren't familiar with the obelisk, it actually has a built-in vocabulary of words that the ghost can manipulate to pull out the proper words, but we prefer to use it in what's called a phonetic mode, which allows the ghosts to actually form their own words by putting vowels and consonants together and forming words and then joining those words to form sentences. And we were asking questions, and I think just at this time, I don't think we were even asking a question, and all of a sudden it spits out this entire long sentence in phonetic mode using the speech synthesizer that's built in, and it says, I believe it says, I'm not scared of you.
Okay, good. We're going to cue that up.
Start it off again if you're here with us.
Goodness.
Are you scared of you?
I'm not scared of you? Is that what it sounds?
That's what it sounds like.
I'm not scared of you either. Start it off again if you're here with us.
Goodness.
Are you scared of you?
I'm not scared of you? Is that what it sounds?
That's what it sounds like.
I'm not scared of you either. Start it off again if you're here with us.
Goodness.
Are you scared of you?
I'm not scared of you? Is that what it sounds?
That's what it sounds like.
I'm not scared of you either.
And Dale, did that sentence, did it make sense considering the claims in the house?
Well, it seemed like whatever was there, for some reason, wanted to hide up in the attic. Right before that, I could have sent you kind of a companion clip that went right before that. It kept saying upstairs, stairwell, stairway, stairs. It kept saying like they wanted us to go upstairs, and then we wanted to try to give this ghost some space, so we didn't go up there. And then right after that, this came through, and then it said, "I'm not scared of you." So then we went up there, and then it just continued to talk. So I guess it was just kind of just saying, kind of reaffirming that it was okay to come upstairs, that I'm not scared of you.
Very cool. What are your thoughts on, say, the obelisk versus the echo box?
Well, I've gotten a lot more. I've only used the echo box maybe a half a dozen times so far, and I've only gotten a few things so far through the echo box. I've gotten a lot more, through, a lot more through, the obelisk, both in phonetic mode and in dictionary mode. We've gotten examples where even in the dictionary mode, the word that we were looking for came through in what we were asking. To give you a real quick example, we were in a place in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, and we had down in the basement, and we were getting a lot of interference on our equipment, our K2 meters, and our tri-field meters, energy readings around this bicycle. We went up there to do an EVP session upstairs, and the first question we asked, we kept getting the name George, so we kind of went with George that came through the box. So we said, "George, what do you like to do?" And the first word that came through was cycle. And I said, "Well, that's kind of interesting because we were just downstairs in the bicycle. We people thought they were touched. We were getting, EMF readings down there. So cycle came through immediately when he said they'd like to cycle. So, I mean, it seems like even in the dictionary mode sometimes we get the right word that comes through in response to the question. Now, sometimes we get a lot of garbage, sometimes. Yeah. But in the phonetic mode, the phonetic mode allows them to form their own words, so you don't have to say one word at a time. It can actually, like, "I'm not scared of you," it can say an entire sentence. And we've gotten many examples where it has put together an entire sentence in phonetic mode. How it does that, it manipulates that speech synthesizer in there somehow and is able to talk through the box.
And and you're saying you haven't used the EchoBox very much?
We haven't used it as much as the other devices yet, right?
Okay. Because I know it's sort of one of the new things out and getting a lot of attention right now. So I'm always curious what people think. I want to touch a little bit too. You have a lot of experience in Chicago and with events, even putting on events there and everything. One question that's kind of come up when we announced that you were going to be a guest was what monster or gangland related hauntings you were familiar with.
I kind of lost the last part of what you just said. I'm sorry.
Because John was laughing over me. Questions come up, what monster or gangland type hauntings have you been able to verify in Chicago?
Oh, gangland hauntings?
Yeah.
There are several, actually. There obviously is the ghost of John Dillinger that has been, or at least some sort of figure has been seen exiting from the front of the Biograph Theater. And we know that John Dillinger was killed at the Biograph Theater in July of 1934 by government agents as he tried to make his way towards an alleyway. And there has been a kind of a semi-transparent bluish-gray silhouette shape that has, on occasion, been seen to exit from the theater, run quickly kind of south on Lincoln Avenue towards that alleyway before it just disappears, almost like a kind of reenactment of how Dillinger died. We know at the site of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, for instance, that happened on February 14, 1929, where 7 members of the Bugs Moran gang were shot down by thugs of Al Capone during what's called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, that even to this day, people passing by the area or people who live in the area claim that they occasionally hear machine gun fire or shotgun blast coming through the area. People that walk through the area around the time or later, they hear sobbing and moaning sounds coming from the area, and even dogs that walk past the area react very strangely to that. And we know that animals are very sensitive to paranormal activity, so they might be picking something up as well. There is reports even at the site of where the original Lexington Hotel was, which was the headquarters of Al Capone, which is no longer there. It's been there's a new place, a new building called Lexington Place in there. But we know that the time before Al Capone was arrested, he claimed to have been haunted by a man by the name of James Clark, who was killed in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and also later when he was sent away to Eastern State Penitentiary, he was also claimed that he was being haunted by Jimmy Clark in there as well. So I'm wondering if residents that are living in that building, in that residence now, are also experiencing some of that activity as well. It's kind of hard to just go up to the door and knock on the door and ask them that, but it's the same exact site where that activity took place where Al Capone was. So there's a lot of activity related to gangsters in Chicago.
And those, and of course that subject is always fascinating to people. Dale, if people are wanting to get a hold of you or your books or any of your events, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Well, there's several ways. Probably the easiest way is go to my website at www.ghostresearch.org. That's ghostresearch, all one word, .org. And they can contact me right through my email there. I do have they can also get me on Facebook. I'm on every single day on Facebook. I actually have a Ghost Research Society page on Facebook as well that they can contact me on. And either way, through Facebook or through my site at ghostresearch.org.
Fantastic. We're about coming to the end of the hour, but we've really enjoyed the talk and would love to have you back another time.
Thank you, Dale.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And everybody stay tuned for Selena Roman Closer to Death. She has Logan South, Danny Catherine, King and Queen of the Vampire Court of Boston.
Night, folks.
For months doing investigations keeps us really hopping almost every weekend.
Well, I understand we're kind of the same way. Just about every weekend. In fact, John's been complaining that there's nothing scheduled for next week. Time off's a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't even know what to do with myself when we got time off.
We get so many investigations and we get so backed up with evidence we have to review that sometimes we have to take a week off just to catch up on our EVPs and reviewing our video and our EVP evidence, just to catch up on everything and writing up reports and getting back to the clients with what we picked up and so forth.
That's how we get too, and then the animals get restless, mainly him. So, what are your favorite places to investigate?
Oh, by far, my favorite locations are jails and prisons, and insane asylums, and old hospitals. Those seem to be the locations that we get the most evidence from. In fact, we do have on tap later in the summer. We're going to be going to Crown Point Jail in Indiana, where John Dillinger escaped using his toy gun. That's been a very very active location. They've actually heard his harmonica playing in his prison cell. They say if you bring tobacco and whiskey to a cell, that you do get lots of responses. We're also going to be going to another hospital in Gary, Indiana, in the end of June, June 28th. It's the actual hospital where Michael Jackson was actually born, called Mercy Hospital. And it's an abandoned 5-story hospital. And the last time we were there, we just got incredible EVPs. In fact,
Good evening. This is Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm Joe.
And we are very happy to have everyone with us tonight. We have a very interesting guest tonight, Dale Kaczmarek from Chicago. Dale, how are you doing?
fine. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're doing pretty good. It's our pleasure, and I think we're going to have some interesting things to talk about. And I want to introduce Dale. Basically, that he's done all kinds of things in the field. Been doing this a very long time. Everything from investigating to writing books to conducting ghost tours in Chicago. Dale, what is on your menu these days?
Well, basically, we're very, very busy this time of the year. Spring and summer and early fall is our when we do most of our investigating. We just got back from investigation last night in Alden High School up near the Wisconsin border. Most of our Saturdays throughout the summer are pretty much taken up for investigations. Next weekend, we're going out to Allegan, Michigan, to a haunted bed and breakfast we're going to be staying at. We're also going to investigate a sheriff's residence and jail out there, and an Allegan Lodge, which used to be an old tuberculosis and insane asylum at one time. And we got some incredible EVPs and disembodied voices last time we were there. So we do keep ourselves pretty busy during the spring and summer, and ways to enhance that, rather than just taking random shots. And then also the ghost hunting techniques was showing the ways that we go about doing investigations, and how our investigative techniques actually work well for us in capturing evidence. And then my latest book was on a field guide to haunted highways and bridges. And I always thought that our haunted infrastructure, all the people that die in highways, accidents throughout the years, these roads and highways, country roads, bridges, and so forth, there's got to be some lingering spirits around here. And I was able to interview quite a number of people, other investigative teams, and they had investigated some of these sites and came across some lots of interesting first-hand accounts. And there was some folklore mixed in with some of the stories. Sometimes it was difficult to tell which was folklore, which is real. But very interesting stories. all around the country. A lot of crybaby bridges, unfortunately, which not always necessarily true. But I put them in there just to show, how they sometimes differ from reality.
Oh, I agree with you. Now, let's take up just a minute to talk about your book on spook lights, because and you mentioned that you covered the Joplin spook light, which is our back door, basically, because we're based in the Joplin area. Well, what were your findings about the Joplin spook light?
Well, we could never ascertain that there was a natural reason for the light. I mean, I had been out there at least 8 different times throughout the years. My first time I was out there was Labor Day weekend of 1982, and we were out there back to get a response from spirits that may be lingering.
I agree. We've had a lot of luck with those techniques too, or playing, setting up a poker game in an area where there was gambling or gangster activity, things like that. And I find those tend to be the most fun investigations with the best results. Now, I also want to familiarize people, some reviewers, with some of your written work. You are a published author, and tell us about your books.
Well, I've written actually several books on the subject. I have written 2 on Chicago ghosts called Windy City Ghosts 1 and 2, which are basically a collection of stories of Chicago ghost stories. Now, what really got me involved was just the amount of ghost stories in the Chicagoland area. Chicago was just a hotbed of activity. And then I began to write other books in things that I had done outside of the Chicagoland area. I wrote a book on spook lights called Illuminating the Darkness, the Mystery of Spook Lights, which were ghost lights that I had investigated all around the country, like the famous Brown Mountain lights, the lights in Rensselaer, Indiana, the Watersmead ghost light, the one in Joplin, Missouri. A lot of these I've actually saw with my naked eye. Some I was able to videotape, some I was able to debunk, and some I wasn't able to explain away. And then got a little more technical. Got to write a couple of books on the aspect of ghost hunting. So I wrote one on Field Guide to Spirit Photography and a Field Guide to Ghost Hunting Techniques, which was kind of my way of showing people how to better their chances to capture things on video or on different types of cameras. We actually sent one of them to you that I hope we'll have a chance to play a little bit later, that we actually got on an obelisk in phonetic mode. So we're actually going to hope to do a kind of a role-playing event there in one of the operating rooms. And every time we do any type of role-playing in hospitals, we just came back from Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Tennessee a couple of weeks ago. We got some incredible evidence when doing a role-playing event in an OR. We actually, just to give you an example, we were doing, trying to put somebody under an anesthesia and told him to count down from 10 and to stop at 6 if he was going to be completely out. He got number 6. And something kept on counting down from 5 to 3. It was none of us.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we find that too. I mean, and I know a big topic in the field right now, has been for 2 years, is the role of provoking versus more encouraging or just more trigger work. And we shy away from provoking, but we find that role playing and period clothing, everything are much more effective.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we don't do any provoking at all. I mean, we use a lot of trigger objects. We use trigger music sometimes. We'll do role playing. We'll try to elicit a response by using period objects that we bring along. And sometimes playing music. Sometimes we just came back from a riverboat investigation a few weeks back, and they say if you play ragtime music down there, that you often get responses. So, anything to set the mood and to remind the ghost of, the time frame that they were in sometimes is enough to